could go as long as you wanted, but now it's wait.
An hour.
Let me see. Refresh.
So we're not live yet, or we are?
Yes. We are right now. We are live.
Okay, great.
just now. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the time you're using. Because I don't know if you're watching this live or in zombie mode. Zombie mode, as you know, is not you're dead. It's that you're not watching it live. Anyway, after that stupid joke, my public service announcement, the daily public service announcement, which is wear your fucking mask.
Yeah.
I don't care if you want to kill yourself, if you're stupid, if you're an asshole, kill yourself. That's your problem. My problem is not you. My problem is that you can get other people killed. You can get the elder, the kids, anybody in your family, anybody, any close friend you can imagine. You can get him killed if you're an idiot and you don't use a mask. And that, I worry about it a lot more. And let me say another thing that I keep repeating. If you don't want to wear your mask, if you think that you're stronger and better for not wearing a mask, you can leave this feed now because I don't want you here. Because I care about the people you can get killed. After that, fine way of saying things that I usually have, polite, wear your fucking mask. Hello, Paul, how are you?
Hi there. Good morning in my time.
Yeah, we're trying traveling already.
Yeah, time traveling. Well, welcome from New York City.
Welcome from Barcelona, Spain. How's things? How's things in New York? You're getting better, I hope.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad that. I mean, knock on wood. I hope we don't have another problem. I mean, March and April was bizarre. I wrote a story actually as a result from living in quarantine. There were no people. It was crazy. This city has millions and millions of people. There was no people.
Yeah.
And it was like, that Charlton Heston movie, The Omega Man.
Yeah.
Or I Am Legend with Will Smith. It's a great book by Richard Matheson, by the way. But the city was empty, so I wrote something. But now it's getting more normal. You can go to restaurants, sit outside, of course, wear masks, as you say. The funny thing though is everything closes early now. Everything's closed by 10 o'clock. It's I live in the village. I live downtown. Lots of jazz clubs, lots of restaurants, and things. And it's like everything closes so early. It's strange. It readjusted my my life schedule. So there's no point to be out at midnight anymore.
Yeah, same thing here. I think that they close at 11 p.m., which for Spain, as you can imagine, as you know,
it's dinner time.
It's just, wait, we're starting. What the fuck is going on? So, but yes, he suggested a lot of people because the biggest risk and, the second wave in a way is happening. They blaming the young people. Of course, it's not only young people, but it's happening because the young people can't want to get out. After 3 months being in lockdown, of course, they want to have a life. So I can blame them. I just blame them if they don't wear the mask, And they said, nighttime entertainment is a risk. It's the second wave is coming because of that, because for many reasons, but especially because the nighttime is entertainment. So they said 11 p.m. everything is closed and everybody goes home.
They're going to try to start opening restaurants for inside seating.
Yeah.
I mean, the real problem I see is, I live in a popular neighborhood with lots of restaurants and things, and you have people like me who live here who are basically walking through the restaurant.
Yeah.
They're sitting outside, or there's a lot of homeless people, and then it becomes kind of a problem. Then the city shuts down streets, and then the traffic has changed. So it's definitely disruptive. But I just basically work. I mean, it's funny. Cartoonists are already living in quarantine.
Yeah.
So they talk about the quarantine bubble. It's basically me and my girlfriend. I see her a few days a week. And then I'm just here working. So in that way, it's been good because, a lot of people are unable to work now. So I'm grateful that I'm, working. So.
Yeah. What's the thing you miss the most? Imagine I am your doctor. I come with my syringe. I should just say, everything is solved. Fuck it all. We have a vaccine.
What I miss,
the first thing that you're missing a lot now, right?
What I miss the most, one reason I moved to this part of New York is there's lots of jazz clubs. And, I love jazz. And, I miss being able to go to a club and hear music and just be able to relax and get into the music. And I have a lot of friends here who are musicians, and they're really hurting. They're not able to work. So that's the thing I miss the most. It's not going to restaurants, or that kind of thing. So it's definitely not the subway.
No,
there to walk more. In fact, it's been good for that.
There was here in Spain in several cities yesterday. There was people protesting in the streets, culture, musicians and all that, saying we need help from the government because we're dying. They're taking care of so many things that in a big way they forgot about the culture in
Right.
the concerts, theater, etc. Cinemas are open, but with the big spaces and all that. But there was a big protest all over the country with people saying, we need your help. Entertainment needs your help because we're dying.
In some ways you might say entertainment is mental health.
Yes, absolutely.
I got a coffee with a friend of mine the other day who's a colorist in comics, and he was saying, he's mentioning how important it is that we see other people. And I think that's the strange part, is that when you're removed from the sort of enriching experience of seeing, paintings or movies or, these or live music, I think it is really important. So we have to find ways to be strong, until this passes. I mean, in human history, there's been pandemics before, right? We've had, the World War I, the flu. Over here, it's called the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
And then also there was a terrible flu outbreak in the late 60s during the Vietnam War here in the States, killed lots and lots of people. There was an Ebola breakout in America. We're lucky that this is not as dangerous as it could be. So I think of this as a beta test.
Yes. Yeah.
If there's any good thing, I think if we, in the West, if we start to wash our hands more, not touch our eyes, we're more conscious of hygiene. These are, things I think people in Asia have figured out already.
Absolutely. Do you remember the last movie you went to watch to a theater?
The last movie I went to? I don't go to movies very much. It was that Van Gogh movie. I think it was by Julian Schnabel. Am I wrong? It was with Willem Dafoe.
Yes.
I forget the name. God, I forget the name of it. I think that was the last movie I saw.
Now, I was asking because most people I'm talking to here, even if it was 3 months ago, they don't remember. It's like there's a mental block separating when the lockdown started and now, and all the faces go blank. Like, shit, I don't remember.
Yeah, you can't. What about you? You probably know yours, right? What was?
No, I Shakin asked me back.
Yeah.
When I asked, and I blanked literally, and I was like, shit. Yeah, I don't remember. It took me 5 seconds to get it back, But so I remember. I remember it was the Lighthouse.
Oh, okay.
The Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson one. But
the kind of a H.P. Lovecraft story.
Yeah, that was creepy. That was fun. I loved it.
Yeah,
but it took me just 5-10 seconds to remember because I also blanked, and it's that strange thing when you don't notice. But since things have changed and everything has happened, so many things have happened in such a small amount of time. With my wife Paloma working here, which she never does because of the COVID, and the daughter at home every moment of the day. Of course, the reality changes. I'm used to work home, as you said, every day. But that's always other artists have told me, yes, I'm used to work at home, but I'm not used to have everybody around. I'm used to be on my own bubble, as you said. The moment that bubble goes breaking, your reality changes, right?
Yeah, true. Did you ever watch that movie City of God?
Yeah.
That Brazilian film?
Absolutely, yeah. Fernando Meirelles, yeah.
It's incredible, right? The theater where I saw the Van Gogh film, or Van Gogh, as they say, they played City of God until they couldn't play it anymore. They played it every single night for a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years. That was dedication. I love that. And that's such a good film. I feel like maybe once a year I watch a great movie. I feel like cinema is like true cinema is kind of like a drug, because everybody believes in this great, like, oh, we can make a great film. We can make a film like Spielberg, or we can make a film like Tarkovsky. But there's so many shitty movies that come out.
Absolutely.
So I'm that guy that watches movies on airplanes. You know, like when I came to Madrid, I said, okay, I'm going to finally watch Avengers Endgame. I'm going to watch John Wick. You know, like that kind of thing, because I just don't go to the movies. You know.
Yeah, but John, Avengers Endgame, I understand it's a matter of taste. If you don't like superhero movies or whatever, screw it.
I liked it. It was
But John Wick is something that I always say you need to watch it in the theater.
John Wick's
It's fucking crazy. You
really cool.
just go there and it's part of the experience. It's a crazy movie.
Yeah.
It's just you're like he killed 1, 2, 3. How many people has he killed in 5 seconds? You even start. I remember in the theater, Paloma and I were, just for fun. We start shits and giggles, as they say. We started counting how many people he was killing, and it was so bizarre. So it makes no sense, but it's fun, and they know it. It's Keanu saying it's not going to make sense. Whatever,
it's funny. They've got this expression in manga called Tekka reality.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, once you establish rules of the universe of the story you're telling, you can't break those rules.
Yes.
And I didn't see John Wick 3, but there was one thing that I won't spoil it. There was one thing that happened at the end of John Wick 2.
It's been 4 years. You can't spoil it. It's been 4 years.
Well, when he jumps off the roof and you think he's dead, that broke the rules of reality, because John Wick is in a real world.
Yes.
Yes, he has a kick-ass Mustang, and yes, he's an assassin. We can buy all that. His brother was, a special ops guy. We can believe everything. Until he jumps off the building, no one is going to survive jumping off 3 stories, smashing his body on the side of a thing. That's when I lost belief in John Wick, because I'm like, okay, now he's a superhero.
Yeah.
He's fucking Superman at this point, right?
Yeah.
And we're supposed to believe he got out of it with a red eyeball. Like, that's...
Yeah, I agree. I remember we were both in the theater like, no, too much.
Yeah,
I didn't think about the rules, but I just think too much. Yeah, it takes you out of the story, right? Because it's that moment when you even consciously or unconsciously you realize he broke the rules.
And dramatically, like if you needed to have a moment where the protagonist makes a crucial, life-threatening choice, you don't have to have him jump 4 stories. He could. There's a lot of things you could do with the characters that would not break the rules. Anyway, that's my one problem with John Wick.
No, but that's also
why I love it. I mean, everybody loves it.
That's also why I was comparing the John Wick movies with a friend to the Mission Impossible ones.
Yeah.
And I was saying the best thing that the Mission Impossible, the rules that Tom Cruise established as producer, and all that, is you can see except for the John Woo one, which is a completely different animal, whether you like it or not. Every other one, the rules, you can say he's always followed the rules.
Right.
Even when it means physical risk for him as an actor, because he broke a feet, just being hanging on a plane and all that crazy stuff he does.
Yeah,
but he's never broken the rules. You can see those movies and that universe. It's so firm in a way.
Yeah.
That's what I love about them. That you always know that it's going to work.
I hadn't considered that. He must be part of the stuntman guild because he does his own stunts, right?
Yeah, he does everything.
Mark Hamill did those for Empire. I think I don't know about Clint Eastwood, but I think I was just watching Bullet. I think Steve McQueen did his own stunts.
Oh yes, everything that you see in Bullet, which is my favorite movie by the way.
I just watched it. It's great.
Everything what you see in Bullet, all the car drives and all that. There's an amazing documentary that shows you him, doing it, and how he have to do it, and the little guy and the guy that was in the car with him. Sometimes, just to force him to pull the brakes.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't want to. He was just nuts, and and there was a guy, because of the insurance company in the car with him, pushing on the brakes with his hand, forcing him to stop.
Wow.
But he did it all. Yeah. That's with Cruise, I will remember that with the last one, Henry Cavill, and then some of the people confirmed a story that Tom Cruise in every shoot has a room put together that is called the panic room, which is that where he trains like crazy. Every time that he's not shooting, he's training because he's 15. I think it's almost 60 now. And the Cavill and the others, they're like, oh, we're gonna train with you, thinking they're gonna beat him and all that. And when they leave, it's like, he fucking killed us. This guy is nuts.
Yeah.
That's why they call it the panic room. And it's all the time, training. And he says that's the only way he can do these movies, because mentally it helps him a lot to stay. It's not only to stay in physical shape. He says the only way to stay mentally in shape is to be all the time training, because it makes my mind sharp.
I mean, I can respect that, to be honest. I think he's probably crazy. I mean,
yeah, and he's a Scientologist too.
So. In psychology, they have this term consensual reality.
Yeah.
Right. So I think he lives in a consensual reality that the rest of us live in, but then he's in a special category where he has his own universe. And so I think there's a lot of actors that you might say Marlon Brando, Matthew McConaughey, Jared Leto, they have their own universe.
Yeah, I would say the perfect example for that is Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, perfect example.
Daniel Day-Lewis is the guy that he lives in a separate reality. He lives in his own reality.
Yeah, isn't it funny, because as artists, it's like, for me, like I make screen prints and I make comics, I make some music. It's like my energy goes into that, but to me it's such an alien idea to want to transform your body.
Yeah.
And change your appearance and change your physical shape and everything. And I think it's amazing, but I mean the actors, I think they depict a character, right? And they want to be iconic.
Yeah.
I think, right? And so it's a different mindset completely.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, your tools of the trade is your hand, your mind, what you just portray reality in your way, to abstract reality, to create your own reality as an artist. Reality means like Christian Bale. Christian Bale is another example.
Yeah. He's another method actor.
Like the De Niro stuff, which you see Christian Bale, and in every movie has a different physique.
Yes.
For his health. I remember the one that he did in Spain, the
Machinist.
The Machinist.
Where he got really skinny. Yeah.
But he was doing The Machinist, and a month later he started shooting the first Batman movie.
Yeah.
So he went from that, and then a month or 90 days, they delayed the shooting of the first Batman. Whatever's the name of the first Nolan one. They delayed the shooting because he was so skinny that in a month he couldn't get in shape until he got in shape. So it was from that skinny crazy to completely buffed.
Right.
And then he started shooting, which is at that time I could just think this guy's gonna die.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
he does that in every movie.
I mean, you must imagine on that level they have all sorts of protection and insurance, and probably the best trainers and best diet. Things that people like the rest of us don't really know about.
Absolutely, I can imagine the doctor, his doctor, and the doctor saying,
the doctor's probably
we want to start shooting Batman Begins.
Yeah,
the doctor's saying no. Why? Because if you start shooting now, you die. So no.
Right.
What for you when you start working on a project? Because we're talking about the muscles we use. Do you think you use different muscles when you're doing an illustration or doing design work or publicity work for Donna Karan, Nike, whatever, and comics? Is different muscles for you, or is there another way to exercise the same ones?
Yeah. And in fact, I use different tools. When I do what I would consider illustration work, I use, I hate to say finer tools, but the funny thing is with whether it's album covers or fashion illustration or film posters, things like this, after all these years I've been doing this, it's that type of work is very different from comics. I think comics is sort of a Morse code or shorthand, where there isn't a great value in making every single panel completely detailed. We don't need everything in the background. If you look at Jack Kirby, a lot of times in, like, let's say Fantastic Four, he doesn't have anything in the background. It's just a powerful concept, And then I think when it comes to, whether it's, billboards or fashion, the kind of conceptual work is different. And there's a value in the drawing itself. So if you're drawing, let's say, a feather, you want it to be a realistic feather. It's not like an impression of a feather.
Yeah.
but it's the way that Feather works with the bigger concept, the brand, let's say, or whatever the campaign is. Like in fashion, it's always like, oh, this year we're going to do metal and like purple, like they do that kind of like really basic concepts.
Mm-hmm.
But in comics, we're trying to evoke a story, right? And so a lot of times we can break down the details that aren't necessary to get to the next point. I don't know really about your personal taste in comics. I love manga, but my favorite cartoonists are mostly Italians. Like if you take Hugo Pratt, like his comics are kind of crude, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the stories are strong. So it's like his writing style is crude. He's like Bukowski, right? Or he gets compared to Hemingway sometimes because he's brief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of those guys that clearly like to go to the point.
Yeah, it goes. Yeah. I like that in comics. I think because someone like Guido Crepax, Frank Miller, it's like the beauty is in the way that they draw. Like that's almost the story. Is like seeing the way that they depict Marv in a hallway, or Batman jumping through a window or something. That's to me really pleasing in comics rather than super realistic stuff.
Yeah, that's something that I keep talking to people. John Bogdanov, we had a great conversation about how the comic arc has changed over the years.
Mm.
And he was telling me he misses the time when he was doing Superman and others because he thinks, and he said, I found out by myself, it was really strange. I started working with a Cintiq, and then I was putting so much detail in everything because you can enlarge and all that. And then I got the comic printed and realized I have been working for like 5 hours on things that are going to be like this.
Yeah.
And he was telling me that took me to compare my reality when I was doing Superman and Power Pack and all that for Marvel and DC and the reality now. And he's like, I miss when we could read the story and have fun and not worry about all the details. I miss when the minimalism wasn't so needed. It was fast, crude, strong, but especially fun. I says he thinks that comic have lost some of the fun because of that.
Yeah, I think this is one thing. Like I've been making comics now for 25 years, and Battling Boy, this project I'm working on, it's taking me a decade. It's 500 pages. There's numerous problems that have come along, but when it's finished, it will be a 500-page graphic novel. But after that, I'm not doing any more 500-page graphic novels. I think comics, the beauty of comics is not in the length. Like we don't have to mimic novels in terms of length. I think some of the greatest comics, like let's take Tintin, for example, Hergé or Karl Barks, these stories can be very short. I think there's an elegance in what is basically a short story.
Yeah.
And also you can finish it in a time that's not going to require a quarter of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why, I'll stop and I'll work on fashion projects or film projects to make money, to be able to finish comics. And, whenever I meet young cartoonists or art school kids, I always say, don't think about making a epic Game of Thrones style story. Yeah. Write something very small. Write about just one story about Jon Snow. Don't tell the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you don't have to write Catcher in the Catcher in the Rye with
please.
Story. Just no. I completely agree, and I also think that is sometimes it's a lot more difficult for them when I talk to young starting kids. It's a lot more difficult for them to tell a story in 8 pages than it is to tell, go and think 120. And I would say, no, challenge yourself. Go short.
Yeah,
you can finish it, because if you can go long, you have the excuse, oh, it's long, it'll take me forever. No. Show us that you can finish something, which is really
right. No. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a great line that Philip Dick had where he makes a distinction between a short story and a novel, and he says, the short story is about a murder. The novel is about the murderer. I think that's great, and you're actually I hadn't considered that before. I think there's a special art to writing a short story.
Yeah,
and, I read a lot of short stories. Of course I'm American, so I know a lot of American short story writing. I've read many other authors as well, but it's a special form, and I think it's really well suited for comics.
Absolutely, and also as I said, I also tell them to use this tool because editors love people who finish a thing.
Yeah, that's it. You know what? They don't. Yeah, this is one pro tip I've learned over my career. Editors don't want excuses.
Yep.
They want work.
Yep.
They don't care if your dog died. They
And
don't
also the famous phrase that Chiarello used to use, and I guess he still uses, is we have a million reasons to say no, only one to say yes. It's like, yeah, let's not lie. That's the truth. When you're doing when you're working in your method, I mean, do you listen to music? Do you have podcasts in the side, or is depending on Olivier Coipel, for example, explained to me that which I found fascinating, that when I'm doing layouts, nothing. I need absolute silence because I have to put everything in place. But when I get to color inks or colors, because he colors his own covers now,
Right.
he always has music, but it has to be music that is, for example, he has an epic scene or an epic cover. He needs epic music. Last of the Mohicans, Lord of the Rings, whatever. But then he uses classic French romantics, classical for emotional things, because he says that puts me more into the story and makes me get better results because I am more involved. Does it happen to you, or how's your work of?
I do all of those actually. Like I normally, like, it's funny, especially since the COVID quarantine started, I listen almost exclusively to ambient music and classical. I mean, I have I used to DJ. I've got a huge record collection of all kinds of everything. But I work in silence also. That's a very different type of. It's almost like you go into a meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's good for concentration for sure. I'm the kind of person that usually likes to have music just as an ambient sound in the background, even if it's very quiet. Just I like to hear that. And then living in a city like this, you're going to hear helicopters and police sirens, and there's a restaurant downstairs, so you always hear people throwing things away, and people outside, and so it kind of puts up a film between you and the outside world.
Yeah.
But I think, to Olivier's point, I think music can be sort of an emotional fulcrum.
Yeah.
So if you need to get into an epic mind state, you want to listen to great soundtracks. I do that sometimes too. If I'm doing like special fight scenes, if the pacing is very dramatic, I want to listen to dramatic soundtracks or something.
But in a way, as you said, having the sound in the background, it's like you need a cacophony, right? Sometimes it's not even defined sound. You need just sound because you're so used to it. It happens to me. I always explain, I am the fifth of 5 kids, all guys, all men. So all my life there was never silence. There was always noise around. So if you take any noise out in complete silence, I'm always looking, like somebody's going to stab me behind my back. I'm not used to that. I'm used to the cacophony, to the noise. Is it that way for you too? You need the cacophony around?
Yeah, it's funny. It makes me realize. My mom lives in Ohio, right, which is the country, and she lives in the country, in a house in the country, and if I go, I haven't seen her for a long time, but when I go visit her, her house is completely silent because there's just no people around, and it's very unnatural. Like I'll wake up kind of in the middle of the night. I'll wake up kind of in shock because I can't hear anything.
Yeah.
And where am I? What's going? Then it's, I'm at my mom's house. There's nobody around. There's no people. There's nothing. And it's strange because I think when you live in an urban environment or you live with siblings, you become used to this noise.
Yeah.
And I like that. So I like just the music is just like an extra element that's just there.
Yes. It happened to me. So you see how fun it was. I never realized until I left my parents' house. We lived like 100 meters, 200 meters away from the fishing docks. So of course there was always birds, sparrows, and all that. And I always slept with that noise, always. So when I come to live here, I couldn't sleep, and I didn't realize why. And then my wife told me, it was impossible. She lived there for a year. It was impossible to sleep there because of the birds' noises. And I was like, fuck, that's the thing. I am so used since I was born to sleep with the birds' noises.
Yeah.
that they took it away and I couldn't sleep. My brain was wired to sleep with the bird noises. That for somebody else who's not used is like a nightmare.
Yeah, it would be really interesting if we could talk to some of our like the masters of our field. Like if we could talk to Will Eisner or Jack Kirby and ask them these questions. I think it's been such a mystery to figure out how to live as a cartoonist.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to art school. I went to a university. I studied humanities and all that, but it was mostly painting, printmaking, things like that. It wasn't comics, like that stuff you had to figure out on your own. And I think, it's sort of like this long distance runner feeling. Like when you work at night, you have a deadline. You're up till 4 a.m. Whatever. Put on coffee. Put on rock and roll. Put on classical. Whatever. Anything that's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And I think everybody probably has an organic way of doing it. Where like you find something that enriches you.
Yeah, I can imagine that Will or Jack or any of the others just literally would answer, or John Buscema or anybody else. Like, I don't know, I just worked. It's like you have to go through so many stages and different, and just had to crank the work and have 4 pages a day. That I guess they would answer, I didn't even think about it. That's like something that Chiarello told me when I had him here. I asked him about the element of design in his work, right? To Chiarello. And she told me, I asked the same question to Alex Toth. They were close. And he said that the moment he asked that to Toth, Toth's answer, that's a stupid question. You just do it.
Yeah.
Of course, he's Alex Toth, so he could say that. But
I don't know.
I guess that's in a way, for them, it was just, you just do it.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a different mentality. I mean, I don't know if I told you, but probably the reason I got into comics is because of Alex Toth.
Mm-hmm.
I started writing him letters when I was a teenager, and he wrote me back and encouraged me. And it's funny because, sadly, when he died, the last time we talked, he said, I've had enough of you. Like, I've told you everything I can tell you. Now go make some work. Don't come back until you have something that I'm going to like. And it was like, whoa. And so Chiarello and I talked to it. For people who don't know, Mark Chiarello is not only a great artist and illustrator, he was the creative director of DC Comics for ages. Most of the great work that I've done at DC has been with Mark, either Mark or Bob Schreck.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Chiarello had a close relationship with Alex, and we've talked about him a lot. Yeah, maybe you're right. I think maybe there's more of a blue collar attitude for the older cartoonist, not a dilettante.
Mm-hmm.
And now we think about, can I get a movie deal? Celebrity, like all these kinds of questions that come up. I think for the cartoonists, like the old prejudice was that cartoonists were guys who weren't good enough to be artists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think they just kind of went with it.
Yeah. You just mentioned Sharon and Shrek. Have I ever told you that? I think I told you this story. Many years before you started working for Vertigo, Shrek told me, "Do you know this guy?" And that's how and I didn't know you. I didn't know your work at all. And he was like, the next day or 2 days later, he comes to me. I don't know. I don't even remember what it was. It was somewhere in the US. He comes to me and he gave me this. Wait.
God, do I want to hear this story or not?
No. Let me show you.
This might be one of those legends.
No. It's I have more here, but this is the one I find now. He brought me this.
Oh, nice! Really? Wow.
And he gave me a couple more. So he found out for me because he was like, you have to know him. You have to. So he spent a couple days or 3, and then he called me and said, "Okay, I got it for you. Come over." So I went over, and he gave me, like 3, 4. They're there. They're in my.
Yeah, I missed
3 or 4 of those. And I was like, literally, like, oh my god, 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 oh my god. This is huge. And like 6 months later, I think 6 months later, 8 months later, I don't remember exactly. Heavy Liquid was announced. And everybody like, who's that guy? And I was like,
yeah, right.
And it was all because of Shrek. I love Shrek. I love Shrek as I love, So that's how I made you work.
Well, I remember when I met Chiarello. I knew who he was. I liked his work already. It was a long time. It was probably 1995. It was at Heroes Con
Mm-hmm.
in North Carolina, and he told me this great story that he because he did silk screening as well. You know, I do silk screening, right? So he loved Barry Windsor Smith, and remember Barry Smith had this great, like very David Bowie looking logo. It was looked like metal, and it's just really cool. So he made a silkscreen T-shirt that just said Barry Smith, right? He made it himself. And Barry Smith came up to him and was like, I could sue you for that. It's like, this is hero. And he's like, this is like an honor. I'm wearing your name, But he's like, I could sue you for that. That's my first memory of meeting Cheat.
Okay, that's a learning experience.
Did you see he's doing a book of baseball heroes?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think
I try to support it on Kickstarter and all that, and to promote it here with people. And suddenly I realized you can only it's one of those strange ones that you can only pledge in America. And I told him, and gee, you can only pledge in America. I'm trying to get a lot of people to pledge because they fucking know you here in Europe. You could have it fund their material. And he was like, "No, but then it's in the US. I will send you a copy." It's like, "No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people here getting your book."
There has to be some kind of a third-party importer, right? Because like my girlfriend loves a particular Greek shampoo that you just can't get in the States. And I was in Athens in November, and I brought a bunch back because I was just really good. I was like, "Hey, I think you like this." And then I was like, you literally cannot find it in the States. And I sometimes when we do screen prints, I hear from people in other countries, and I try to find a way to send them the prints just on my own, right? So send me some more, I'll send them myself.
Yeah, there's a company that I use sometimes that is, I don't know if you know, it's called Border Free.
Border Free?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Companies that doesn't send stuff out of the US.
Uh-huh.
I go to borderfree.com and they deal with those companies. So
okay. Good. Well, we just had a soft plug for borderfree.com, everyone.
No, but well, whatever. Sorry, it wasn't in purpose.
Brought to you by borderfree.com.
Exactly. For you, what is so special about the comic language? What makes it so unique that you keep coming back after so many work, so many hours, so many shit? I want to kill myself. I want to finish this project finally. Once and for all. What is that keeps you coming back?
Actually, this is going to sound very trite, but the blank page can be anything, and I just get so excited. And also these stories I have in my head, it's like I need to express them somehow. And I've worked really hard to learn how to use a brush, and I've studied with like great artists, and I've been to lots of places and things, and I think it's just something I can dedicate myself to and do something useful.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, but there's like mystery in a blank page, and in fact I talked to Chiarello about this, and this classic cliche that artists are afraid of the blank page. Like I feel like it's like a swimming pool. You can just go into it.
Mm-hmm.
Be anything. I mean, the hard part is when it becomes a job, and then now I'm thinking about taxes. I'm saving money to pay my taxes and stuff, and get a different credit card, and so then when finances come into it, it becomes a little more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But if you never lose the sense of wonder that you had as a child, I think then comics can be one of the most amazing things ever.
And that takes me to the other question.
Sure.
What made you decide comics is my thing? Is that childhood love that took you there, or there was a conscious decision later in life?
No, I think
you say this is what I want to do.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like, it was almost like a coming out, because like I loved comics as a kid, but I thought I should be a painter. Maybe I'll be an academic. Maybe I'll go into galleries. I'll be like, my heroes were like Picasso and de Kooning and these kinds of people. So I studied painting, and then my grandma was like, "Oh, you should be an architect. You'll make money as an architect. Don't be a cartoonist. Like those people are poor," that kind of thing. And I just realized it's like, you know what? Actually, at the end of the day, I love comics. Like I wouldn't enjoy being an engineer or an architect. These things I like publishing. I like making books. I like drawing. The feeling of making a great drawing is like nothing. It's like you can't compare it to anything.
Yeah. I remember when I had Scott McCloud a month ago or so, he was talking about the different schools, the different school of thought in comics, formalist, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I always go, as you say, crude. Compared to him, he theorizes and all that, but I always say the other things like, I don't care. For me, there's two schools of thought in comics. It's the people who likes to play with design above all. The important thing for them is how to play with the art form, with the language, and the other people is the one that likes to emotions are above everything, and then we care about the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Where could you put yourself, or maybe you put yourself both of them at the same time? But
you know who got me thinking about this a lot was, believe it or not, Alex Ross. Mm-hmm. Like Alex and I are sort of from the same graduating class, 1994, 1993. We broke in. We were friends. We are friends. I love his work. And I think he also likes my work a lot. But we're like a good counterpoint to each other. And when he comes to New York, sometimes we get together. I remember one time we had this discussion about realism versus impressionism in comics. Mm-hmm. And, I remember he was looking at one of my pages in Escapo and in one of my early books. And, he said, like, okay, the character is standing in a wheat field. Right, so the wheat is coming up to his knees, and he's looking at the sky. And he said, what? He challenged me. He's like, why don't you put more detail into the environment instead of just making lines that suggest he's in a space? Like really draw, like the particular type of wheat he's in. And it was interesting because I'd never thought about, as kind of a naive cartoonist, it was the first time I met someone who was really accomplished in comics in a very different way. Mm-hmm. And I did the same with him. I said, okay, well, rather than you making a mask for Galactus and posing and getting an actor to play Galactus, why don't you just draw the way Galactus looks in your mind? And so we made an agreement, and that was really cool because it was almost, talk about Game of Thrones, it was like I met a king from a different but yeah, I feel like, the kind of cartoonists I really like are the ones where you can see the line, whether it's Karl Barks or Kirby, Gary Panter. I mean, I could go through any number of other cartoonists I love. Lots of manga, That's what I like. I don't need precision in comics so much because we have film for that.
Yeah, that's why I asked. So you could put yourself more in the find the emotion than into find the form, right?
I'm somewhere between emotion and form. Yeah, because I'm also a formalist. I mean, I love Tarkovsky. I love Fellini. Eisenstein. I mean, I think a lot about film directors. Mm-hmm. Cartoonists are like directors in a way.
Yeah.
And especially if you have a specific type of story, then it requires a different approach. Some things can be very loose, but I think some things are very structured, and we need to approach that as a very structured style of directing comics.
Yeah. Do you see your when you're working? Do you see yourself like in a way, like it's music, like you're drawing a symphony?
Yeah, sometimes because the way I write is I'll start with a theme and a composition. And I won't, like, for example, with Battling Boy, I told them I don't have a script. When I work in film, like I've written film scripts and stuff, but it's not a script. I'm not going to be, directly connected to the dialogue and the placement of the scene and the scenario. There has to be room for improvisation. Mm-hmm. This is why I love jazz, because jazz has a theme. And it has room for improvisation. And I think when manga does this very well, when there's room for improvisation, you can have incredible comics that go beyond anything we think about. It's not just telling a story, like the man walks in a room and someone shoots him and he's dead. That's the story. But if you elaborate on all the visual things, all the emotions and moments and the lighting, all these different qualities. I think that's what makes comics so intriguing.
Yeah, I also think that many times, going back to what you just said about Alex and yourself, sometimes I get bored, and I'm not talking about Alex in particular. I get bored when I see something too detailed, because with comics, as in everything in life, I'm talking about symphony, I would think about math and about, science.
Sure.
Some science for me, I like this,
Right.
That's why they will call the schools of arts and sciences anyway. But I always think that when there's too much detail, I think, why don't you let me recognize things? We're human. We're based on pattern recognition. So a thing that is not there,
Yeah.
we know what it is. We hear the old adage about, you hear, some feathers moving, some grass moving, and you jump because you still think that a tiger or a lion is going to jump off and kill you.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that comes to us, from the prehistoric times, but it still happens, that pattern recognition. So with comics, many times I just want 2 lines, and the rest is going to be filled by my brain. So
well, that's successful if you think about something like Peanuts. Charles Schultz, his style, even though it changed so much over time, his reduction, the way he sees the world, it's almost like when you look at Peanuts, you're putting on the glasses and you're seeing the world through Charles Schultz's eyes, or Dr. Seuss is a great example. I think that's the beauty of drawing, when you have a style that explains how you think, and it says something universal to people in a way that's very personal.
Yeah.
And so a story that touches people, but it's done in the way that you think things look. I think that's the beauty of it.
And also the surprising yourself as a creator, right? I always talk to Frank from Miller, and he I don't know if he does that anymore. I think so. He always said, I always have the ending first. First I go to the ending, and if I have an ending, then I do the rest. If I cannot think of the ending first, I don't care. I don't do the story because I know I'm not going to like it. So he works from the ending that he devises, and then he creates the rest of the story. So he surprises himself during the rest of the creation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The times he and I would hang out, we would be in a restaurant or something, and we'd overhear people talking, as you always do. And he always had a little notebook, and he'd pull it out, and he'd write down the line someone said, like just dialogue he hear, and he'd say, "Oh, this is good. I'm gonna keep this. I'll use this." And he had a technique, and I think writing from the ending is a really good way. They also say, this is true for me, if I don't have a title for the book, I can't work on the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it needs a title.
Yeah.
I know some people go, I don't know what the title of this book is. But I find that to be, until the title is there, I don't know what the book is.
Yeah, that happens to a lot of writers I know. When I'm told by some writers what you just said, I'll find the title later. I don't get it.
Right.
There's no title for me. There's no story. That's where everything that you develop comes from. Even if you work from the ending.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Frank knew Sin City was going to be called Sin City before he knew that ending, or it came at the same time. But I can't imagine Frank working on the first stories without knowing the title of the book, because that defines everything you do, right?
Yeah, I have that big the collector's edition of Sin City. It's right here. In fact, I look at it all the time. It's just amazing. You too?
Thank you.
Yeah,
The huge one.
there's
and the one behind it is the big one, the big Prince Valiant from Fantagraphics. So
beautiful. Hey, but by the way, you might be the right guy to ask, because I love Hal Foster. I've seen a number of his originals, but I don't have room for 26 volumes of Prince Valiant. Which is, if I were to get one Prince Valiant, which would you say?
Only one?
Yeah. Like which era? Which?
I could say. I mean, you guys can give opinions, of course, on the chat too. I could say go to the middle. I could say 5, 6, 7. I wouldn't say just in half. I could say it's good all over it, of course, but the middle one, when he's in his A game, A+, because everything was A game.
Yeah, I just want like a great example of.
I could say between 5 and 7, something in at that point, because it's when he's already used to it and he's growing with every page. The rest you get to the middle part, like 10 or something like that, it's already steady. You know what I mean? There's no.
I remember
I like to see them grow. I like to see them grow. And 10 is already. I don't think he's wrong. He's perfecting.
Right.
He's perfecting, but it's already there. But before that's when the point when you see he's comfortable with the book.
Yeah,
it's his book already, and from that point on, the 5 to 7, I could say, is when you notice that, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. That's. I mean, I think there's the hidden link with comics is newspaper comics.
Yep.
And when I was a kid, I remember Prince Valiant. It was in the paper. It was, that this was back when you could see newspapers, and it's like, here's Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes, and but Prince Valiant was boring. But if you look at his early work, it was like, wow, this is amazing. So that's good. Okay, I'll look for that one. Do you like this one? Buzz Sawyer?
Yes,
I love Roy Prince. He's my favorite.
I love it. I don't have that one. I have to find.
This is also Fantagraphics. They're doing such a great job. That's also brought to you by Fantagraphics.com.
Yes. Next, it'll be Drawn on Quarterly or something like that. Whatever. No. If you think about your evolution as an artist, do you see yourself going being steady in terms of your style, or going? I know the comparison is crazy, but going all the Mazzucchelli way. I mean.
No,
going so crazy about going with
esoteric. It's the way I would. I think the schism in American comics in terms of the career, like when you become a career cartoonist, there's a great shadow that's cast by Art Spiegelman, Robert Crumb, Gary Groff.
Yep.
The art comics.
Yeah.
Intellectual comics, let's say. Or what I do is more like I'm somewhere between Frank Miller and Mobius and Crepax. I feel like it's more like earthy and pop, and I'm not trying to be.
I keep seeing Otomo in you.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at Akira yesterday. I think he's more precise than I am. He's more of he's more like a Chris Nolan. He's technical.
Yeah.
I think if you watch Inception feels like Akira to me.
I haven't thought about it, but it's a great.
I think so.
I could say Tenet, the last one, is more Akira. It's more Akira in that sense. But anyway, yes, that's his conception, inception, whatever. That's Nolan's concept. Yeah, it fits. But I always saw, especially before in your work before Battling Boy, possibly, I always thought in a way I saw Otomo in you.
Oh yeah, I mean, but also because a lot of my stories are set in urban environments, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Battling Boy is my attempt to do a Spielberg 1982 summer blockbuster. It's just taking a long time. Mm-hmm. But when it's done, it's like, okay, I just told the only story you're going to need about a 12-year-old superhero. It's my version of like all that.
Your mega epic that takes you forever.
It's my science fiction fantasy epic. And then when it's finished, I'll go on and I'll do a completely different type of thing.
And you were talking about science fiction. In Battling Boy, was there any unconscious, subconscious influence from Mobius or Corbin or?
Oh yeah.
Any of those guys? Conscious. You wanted to put your idea, of what those guys could do, or was it?
Not only that. I don't know Richard Corbin, but I showed before Battling Boy was published. I showed it to Mobius, and I showed it to Jean-Claude Mézières. Valerian, another huge hero of mine. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I got to know them, and I wanted them to be okay. I said, can I get your blessing on this? I want you to see this is very inspired by your work, etc. And they both liked it, and I said, okay, good. Well, if these guys like Battling Boy, this is going to work.
Yes. If any of you don't know, of course, I assume you know Mobius, but some of you, if you don't know Jean-Claude Mézières, if you don't know Valerian, and I don't talk about the movie.
And wear your fucking mask.
Yes, and wear your fucking mask. Please go and read every single Valerian book. It's one of the best ever. And
yeah,
I've watched The Fifth Element. and you think that was Mobius. No, 90% of the Fifth Element, and I know because we exhibited the originals in my hometown many years ago. That was Messier's too. He designed it all. So you need to watch. You need to read. You need to read those books. And
I like Luc Besson's films too. I must admit, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. His early films are really good. I like.
I love his early films. I just say that Valerian.
No, the casting was wrong.
The casting, exactly. The casting. The moment I saw the casting, like, no.
Who would you cast as Valerian?
As Valerian, well, it's easy to say now because he could be Timothée Chalamet, but of course he wasn't there. The guy who's doing Dune, and he did Call Me by Your Name. But
you mean as a director, or do you mean?
You mean director? Sorry, I meant the actor.
Yeah, the likeness of what actor is the likeness?
Honestly, I wouldn't care about the likeness because it's Messier has a certain style. I would just care about having a young kid that's a good actor. I don't think Jean-Claude would care if he exactly looks like with the same hairdo or anything.
Yeah, you're right though, because he I think Valerian is such a 1970s character.
Yeah,
late 60s, early 70s, and you could update his type. You could have nowadays you could have Harry Styles could play Valerian and be fine.
Yeah, it would be fine. The problem is that they have a guy who blank and who's amazingly beautiful, but she's also blank. So there was no chemistry, there was no emotion among themselves, or not even among themselves in camera. There was no feeling, and you need feeling in Valerian.
You know who would be good for Valerian would be young Sean Penn. If you could have gotten young Sean Penn in 1985 and grew his hair out a little bit.
I could fight you with answer to that with Matthew McConaughey.
I thought of him too.
Young Matthew McConaughey and young Julianne Moore.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Julianne Moore, I think, would be.
Yeah.
Or even crazier. Even crazier for Valerian. And you're gonna hate me for this. Jeff Goldblum.
Who? Goldblum? Okay, yeah, Goldblum. Young. Well, he was kind of skinny, but yeah. In fact, I just watched The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Speaking of Goldblum, God, it's a good film.
Yeah.
The 1978 version.
Well, except for the last one, I love them. I love for all the versions. The last one, the Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig one, which is horrible, I think. But the other ones, the Don Siegel, of course, and the second one, and even there was a third one. That was the Rio Argento? No. I don't remember, but there was a third one that was also good. But when you think about science fiction, in your case, of course, there's two options: the utopia and the dystopia. For you see the future in a dystopic way, in a Philip K. Dick, to say in a way, or you see it in a Arthur C. Clarke way. More science, more pure, cleaner, or Legion of, or even since we're talking comics, or even Legion of Superheroes. Or Star Trek, whatever you want to prefer.
Superheroes are different from science fiction. I mean, if it's science fiction, I definitely gravitate toward the dystopian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm from the school of Orwell, so I believe we need to use science fiction as predictions on our fears about where society is going.
You mean cautionary tales?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I always tell people to read Huxley, Orwell, and Dick, and tell them this is cautionary tales. Like the Anderson brothers, the Hans Christian Andersen, or the Green brothers. They were the cautionary tales of their era. I think fiction can work as that too, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could also throw Lord of the Flies into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Slaughterhouse-Five. There's a number of books. Billy Budd, you might even put into that. Stories about the way people interact with each other, and when the niceness of society breaks down, or when law goes over the line.
Yeah,
those kinds of things. That's the kind of science fiction I like personally. I don't really believe in utopia, so I'm not interested in. I like Arthur Clarke well enough. I mean, I wouldn't put him high on my list of science fiction writers.
Yeah, I am of two ways. I love dystopia, but I also like hard sci-fi, something that I've always liked a lot. So he's on my list because or that vision of the future. Not the idealism or anything like that, because Clark wasn't an idealist in a way, but that vision that that science can help us get to a certain point. So that part I agree.
Yeah.
But I gotta be honest, this is like more like intellectual reading for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I read the other ones, as you said, Dick, Huxley, Orwell, etc., those are funnier. Funnier, not in the sense of I have more fun reading them. If you know what I mean, it's more entertaining, and I finished the day saying, you know what, that was a good day's reading, because
well, George Orwell's. I'm sitting by my bookshelf, so.
Live stream is
We're back. Sorry again this week. Somebody at YouTube decided to cut us. Yeah, stupid. Sorry, Paul. You were saying about.
Yeah, no. George Orwell, the collection of essays. He has this famous essay called "Shooting an Elephant," which is about a moment that he had when he was stationed in India, and he had to shoot an elephant that was stopping traffic, and it was a reflection on colonialism and the role that the British people had as a colonial expansionist power. And to me, it's science fiction because he's writing about a clash of two cultures.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times this is the type of thing we write about in science fiction. So it makes sense to me that Orwell would write one of the great classics of science fiction because he was very, he fought in the Spanish Civil War, anti-fascist. And he said, I couldn't shoot a man when he was in the trenches. And he said, I can't kill a man if his pants fall off. And he said a guy came out of a foxhole, was running, and his belt broke or something, and his pants fell down. And he's like, I can't shoot that guy. He's no longer a German. It was World War I. He's no longer a German. He's a man.
Yeah.
And I think that's just incredible.
He becomes real. Yeah.
That's the humanity is like, I think, the heart of all these things that we love about, even though our special field is comic books or graphic novels or whatever, we're writing about humanity and about the human condition, what it means to be alive.
Yeah, about the reality. You were talking about colonialism. I always remember one documentary I saw when I was a kid I still remember that phrase, and I was probably 10 or something. A guy that went to the Ivory Coast and literally said, just so you know, there is no ivory and there's no coast.
Wow.
Some guy just decided to call it like that because he could.
Yeah.
And
that's the big joke
forever. Like that point that I have the power, I'm showing my cock. Like, yeah, I'm going to call it like that. Like, wait.
Right.
So, and it's just, then to this day, that's the name. And there's no ivory, there's no coast. So that tells you about.
Did you ever hear the argument that science fiction emerged once we discovered everything on the planet? There were no more unknown places. The top of the Himalayas, the bottom of the Marianas Trench. It's like now we know every place on Earth. So to find the exotic or the out.
It makes absolute sense, because before that you had Wells or H. Wells, so you had Jules Verne, which was science fiction,
right?
But it was about exploration.
Yeah,
it was knowing the
technology also.
Exactly,
right?
But when you get to that point when you know the end of the world in a way, what you have left, you have to go.
Yeah,
you have to go out. You have to.
Yeah, you go out.
You have to go Bradbury. You have to go Clark. You have to go to the unknown.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I mean, probably at the bottom, if I were to if you scratched off all of everything, I probably am like Arthur Clarke, because I do think that if humanity is going to get, if we're the only intelligent species in the universe, we have to get off this planet and go somewhere. So we're going to need to harness technology, science, peace, all these things. We're going to need that, really. But in the short term, we're dealing, like in my neighborhood, there were riots 2 months ago. We're dealing with social issues too. So it's almost like they're two different brains when it comes to science fiction.
Yeah, in a way, I always say when they ask me about if I'm religious, I'm not. I'm agnostic. But at the same time, if I'm something, I'm Saganian because of Carl Sagan. Because I grew up.
I like that. Okay,
the cosmos when I was
great,
and I always keep that hope, and that I remember one phrase he said in Cosmos, he kept repeating, is we are explorers. Whether we like it or not, we are explorers. That we are a race of explorers. We need to find the next frontier.
Yeah,
whether it's by sea, whether it's by land, whether it's by plane. So we are always going to want to explore. And the next frontier is to go out, is to go to space. So I think that's something that it's in our DNA. Whether we like it or not, we need to do it. We need to go out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's great. I like his book, Demon Haunted World. Did you read that one?
Yes, I have them all.
That's about
Demon Haunted World and a pale blue dot. People know Cosmos, but I always tell them to go with Pale Blue Dot and Demon Haunted World. You need to read that. Because he also, in Demon Haunted World, he did it before in Cosmos, but in Demon Haunted World, a lot of the things that are affecting now, ultra right-wing nationalism, coming back, fascism coming back, climate change, a lot of stuff. It was already there, and it was 79 or something.
Oh,
he was already warning us about that 50 years ago.
Well, I remember hearing about the ozone depletion in, I think, 1980. I was 10 years old.
He was talking about that in Cosmos.
Yeah, he warned people about the ozone back then. Yeah.
Yeah, and here we are.
Anyway, revisit his work. I also like Richard Dawkins. Have you read him?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I like him.
Sometimes he drives me a bit nuts when he goes to extreme, because sometimes he is too extreme, and I'm like, slow down.
I don't know if I've read enough to have that opinion. I read his book, The River Runs Through It, about the DNA and the history of studying DNA.
He has a couple books where he goes to extreme, and but it's especially when he goes out in public and speaks, in conferences, etc. And I love the guy, but the older he gets, the crankier he gets, the more extreme he gets.
Why does that happen to people?
I don't know. They don't know how to mature. You and me, for example, we don't get old. We get vintage. We mature like the good wine. So we don't have that problem. We don't get cranky.
The one place I will say the Venn diagram doesn't work is with pop music. When I listen to current music, that's okay. I can't get, I like Billie Eilish, but that's about it.
I don't think Billie Eilish is pop music.
Maybe it isn't pop music, yeah. But when I hear I'm like, okay, Harry Styles, this guy looks cool. Let me check his music. It's terrible. It sounds like shit.
Pop music. I think the problem with pop music is that first you gotta let them grow. I mean, most of the kids or the guys who does it, it's like tuck, 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 square, square, square. Fill this out. When you realize that. I think 60. I saw it last year, and I was like, "Whoa!" 60-70% of the biggest hit guys, like Taylor Swift. What was the other woman? Well, whatever. All of them.
Yeah.
They are produced by the same guy.
Oh yeah.
That's a machine. It's a machine. Like back. It's always the same. But then you realize, for example, Beyonce. I didn't care about Beyonce at all. But then I listened to her last album, Lemonade, the one she wrote about Jay-Z. Going with other women and all that, about how she released that on her own with not telling anybody about the date. She just released it, and I listened to it, and I was like, "This I'm interested on." She matured. This is her voice. And Taylor Swift released. I didn't care about it at all, but my daughter, 6-year-old, she loves Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
So she got a new album like a month ago. It's called Folklore, and I listened to it. And I was like, this I'm interested in, because that's her recording in her house in lockdown.
Oh, okay.
The things that
that's what I want to hear more music recorded in lockdown, because I think as an artist, for musicians, this must be a special time.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I wasn't interested in her music at all before, but I heard that this is interesting because this is her. She's found her identity, and that happened to me with the Dixie Chicks too. I didn't like them at the beginning, but the last album I was like, this is their voice.
Yeah.
When they found their own voices in pop music,
yeah,
that's amazing. They can be amazing musicians, but but the first 5-6 years, I'm like, right. It's all the same, right?
Right. I see. They also changed their name, didn't they? Didn't they? They dropped Dixie, I think I heard.
But I don't know. I know they just released or about to release a new album after 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it might have been them, but yeah, I know what you mean.
You know, I say it's Billie Eilish. That's why I don't say. I don't think she's pop. It's her and her brother doing their thing.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, but technically it's pop music because it's popular. But
Well,
yeah, it's special. It's its own thing. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with the people so they don't. We think we're ignoring them. Like we could be talking forever, but let's not ignore them. Okay, Jose Angel says hello. I'm here to say hello. I cannot stay to see the chat live. I will see it later. But David, please tell Paul. Jose Angel is a Spanish artist, by the way, that he's the second pillar that I needed to know I wanted to draw many years ago as a professional artist. The first one was Frederick Peters. Big hug.
Oh, yeah, Peters is great. I love that guy a lot. He's a great guy.
Mm-hmm. Go, please.
No, thank you. I just want to say thanks.
Mike Hara says, hello, David and Paul. I would like to ask who or what Paul got inspiration from as a young artist and he still gets inspiration from today.
Well, we talked about a number of them. I mean, Frank Miller, Mobius, Picasso, John Lennon, George Orwell. You know, I try to find a number of different things. And as I've gotten older, it's, you know, like the great thing about living in a place like New York is, you know, I got to know Anthony Bourdain and get to like know some artists in completely other fields. I mean, food is an art form in itself, right? And preparing food and things. And I love knowing people who work in the restaurant industry and stuff. And so, you know, I like to keep, like I used to say, exploring. You know, I want to keep exploring. And for me, it's cultural exploration.
Yeah.
This is why I love to come to shows in Europe and South America. You know, because there's so many different types of cultures of comics and styles and attitudes, and it's great. I love that.
Not having met Bourdain in person is one of the saddest parts in my life.
Yeah,
I was deeply affected by his shows, especially the one in Beirut and a lot of other stuff. I gotta be honest, when I knew he had committed suicide, I had a really horrible the whole 2-3 days, and I haven't met the guy at all.
Yeah,
for me, it was somebody that was so close because, as you know, I love a lot cooking and I love food and a lot of chefs too. It's part of my exploring, as just said.
Yeah,
he was so close that the moment I knew, I was really, really, really hurt.
Yeah. It was rough. I'm still friends with his writing partner.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good friend of mine, so we talk, and there's that sense of family. But yeah, I think he was a great artist.
Yes, absolutely. Damien Connolly. Hello, David. Hello, Paul. Cheers to you both, and looking forward to more comics from Paul coming soon. Greetings from Argentina.
Thank you.
Greetings from Buenos Aires. Cheers, says Caricaturas. Lucas Mauricio says cheers from Brazil. Tito James says, question for Paul. What genres or artistic subjects would you like to see more explored in comics?
Good question. Sports. I would like to see more sports in comics. It's dynamic action. It's man versus man, woman versus woman. It's competition. I think the stories don't always have to be epic, cosmos clashing, good versus evil. It can be smaller stories. And that's one thing that manga does very well. Is they tell this
that's what I was going to mention, that I think they tried in France, we've tried in Spain too, in a way, but the only comics that really are fond of working on that in sports as a genre is manga, right?
Yeah, there are some, but I think it's good to look at other areas of human action, not just good versus evil or bank robbing and these kinds of things.
Yeah,
this is one reason romance comics were so popular. I think people, this is the type of story people want. Everybody wants to be in love. Everybody wants to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, something like that. So I think there's a lot of areas. I also think, just funny comics, like little funny animals and things. I think like comics shouldn't be defined by any one thing. It's a voice.
Yeah, it's a medium, not a genre.
Yeah, exactly.
But you just mentioned romance comics. There was like a poll, and I think it's the third one that is made the last 4 or 5 years, about asking people what is the genre that they miss the most in comics, that think they should be more done more, and everybody answers, "I want romance comics to come back."
Yeah. Well, I tried 100% was my attempt at romance comics. I think Love and Rockets is a great example. Like
Yes.
Love and Rockets is a romance comic.
Yep.
Archie is one of the best sellers, and that's kind of a romance comic, although
Archie's his own thing. Let's just say that.
Archie. I don't want to say anything mean about Archie.
Yeah, let's just say it's his own thing.
It's
That's
his own thing.
I'll leave it there. It's the best way to avoid saying what we don't want to say in public.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I think romance comics is something that is really needed if we want to reach a wider audience. So, but I don't see comic publishers, wanting to do it. But yeah, the young adult goes in a way,
Yeah.
that direction.
Yeah.
But we don't need superheroes to do it. Young adult with Batgirl, Reuben, whatever. Yes, DC is doing that. But at the same time, I think, why don't we do that without superheroes? With with normal people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always thought it'd be a great idea if, like if you read the really good Claremont and Byrne X-Men, that period, if you could have like one comic book a month is X-Men in costume fighting, the Morlocks or whoever, then the next month would be just the romance stories.
Yeah.
So then you get like Kitty Pryde and Colossus, and like they're having their little romance, and it's like that's what I loved about that, because it was like real people.
Yes, and the love triangle between Dazzler, Rogue, and Longshot, and that stuff like Claremont did. That was amazing, and that issue that was them playing baseball, or the girls' night out.
Yeah.
In Australia, all that. I miss that stuff. I miss those issues where you could explore. There wasn't a superhero story. There was just them having fun.
Yeah. Those are really. It's funny. I went through a phase where I read all the X-Men comics, not all the X-Men comics, but I read a lot because I love Dave Cockrum. So I was looking at Dave Cockrum's work, and I got into Bird. And I read those as a kid, like you probably did.
Yeah.
But as an adult reading them again, it's like, wow, this is really good. These are soap operas.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like I remember when Bob Harris started doing the Avengers with Steve Epting. And people were saying, "Oh, this is soap opera," and it's like, I love it. This is Bob, who's the editor in the X-Men, as a writer, doing what he read in Claremont's X-Men with the Avengers. Creating a soap opera, with Crystal and Quicksilver and Black Knight and all that. It was a soap opera at the same time. It was romance comics, and I love that a lot, because that's an element that I think it should always be in superhero comics. It's part of conflict.
Yeah, I agree. I love it.
Okay. Mike Hara, you mentioned a love for jazz. I'm curious if you've read Haruki Murakami's novels. He mixes music, especially jazz, into his stories. How does music influence your work? Well, the last question we already discussed, but Murakami, do you know his work?
I don't really like Murakami's books, to be honest. I don't understand his writing style. I've read a number of his novels, but I'm not a big fan of his. I appreciate that he loves jazz. I mean, the thing that I like, as we said before, the thing I like about jazz is the sense of improvisation with a theme. Because I like a composition that can expand or contract.
Yeah.
Then it's an organic story.
But that's the thing that I'm sorry, Philip. The thing that I don't like about Murakami is that it doesn't look improv. It doesn't look like real jazz. It looks calculated.
I think it's very, like, what was it, the Wind Up Bird Chronicles?
Mm-hmm.
It's like his work is very mechanical to me.
Yes, that's what I meant. It doesn't sound like real jazz to me, because it's calculated. It's mechanical. It doesn't read like improv.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's easy. Of course, I'm no writer. What do I know?
I'm not saying I think he's a terrible writer. I don't prefer that style.
Yeah, absolutely. Matteo Mauri, we are thirsty for a new Paul Pope book. Any news on THB or Battling Boy 2? Greetings from the land of Hugo Pratt.
Oh, great. Yeah. There will be a lot of new work soon.
That's it.
That's all I can say.
That's it.
You will be very happy.
No, don't ask for more details because not the time or place, guys. But it's coming. He's working on it. He said before. Café con Casca. Mr. Pope, how did you conceive the idea for Batman Year 100?
Well, I thought about the surveillance state, and I think part of the real gold in science fiction is predicting things. And I live in a big city, and there's cameras and police everywhere, and so I was thinking about what would it be like if there was a superhero in a police state, and so that was the idea. So it's kind of Batman in 1984.
Mm-hmm.
That was the idea. I guess that's also what Alan Moore did with V for Vendetta, right? It's kind of a similar thing. It's like trying to make a realistic prediction of a real like a normal guy with tools and athletics, but he lives in a police state.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea.
Okay. Blake Roybal, will there be another Battling Boy? Yes, he already said that.
Yeah. It's I got a stack of pages over here.
What's your favorite work you do outside of comics?
Oh God, outside of comics, I really enjoyed working with Diesel Industries. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of projects, store designs, special events. It was, one year we did a Fashion Week thing in Hollywood. It was very interesting to work on a production with lots and lots of people and an event. And I did a screen print for the party. That was pretty interesting. It was like a completely different type of work from comics. So that was good.
Okay, Blake Roybal, what's your favorite Jack Kirby book?
Oh man,
that's like asking you to pick.
That's well, immediately I think of the first 100 issues of Fantastic Four, Commandy, and Challenges of the Unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my Desert Island Kirby books.
Okay.
What about you? What are your favorite?
My favorite Kirby.
Yeah.
Probably Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
But if we talk about crazy concepts, just Jack being Jack.
Yeah.
I would have to say, I'm not sure if I would say New Gods or Eternals.
Yeah.
Because for me, they're the same book for different companies, to be honest. It's like just him being crazy. But if I have to say, in terms of solid, going crazy new stuff every month, I have to say Fantastic Four. But I would maybe even Thor. In terms.
I think there was a period where Thor was incredible. Also, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it's very difficult to pick.
Well, you could stop at Jack Kirby.
Yeah, same.
Right.
When I asked what's your favorite Ditko, between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, like I can't pick, but I have to pick one.
Yeah.
Where did he go crazier? Okay, Doctor Strange. So that's the one I'm gonna mention.
Okay.
Okay. Felipe Brel asks, how does Paul? Do you know Yuko Shimizu?
Yeah, she's a good friend of mine.
He's asking, how did you meet her?
Oh, we met because she used to be roommates with James Jean,
mm-hmm.
the painter and artist. And James was like, "Hey, you should look at my roommate's artwork. It's looks a lot like yours." And then what's really cool about Yuko, I've known Yuko for 20 years, I think, and we're good friends. And what's funny is when we first met, it's like, hey, I like your work a lot. It looks like, are you inspired by these artists? And what's funny is that we discovered that we didn't know each other at all, but I was looking at all the Japanese artists that she likes, and she was looking at all the European artists that I like. And so we call ourselves art twins, because I think our styles are very similar. And yeah, she's a great human being, one of the best people I know, in fact.
Okay. Paul, who do you think is the best? Oh, okay. This is a difficult one. Who do you think is the best comic book artist of the last 30 years?
Oh, that's a good question. Christoph Glenn. If I had to pick one.
Nothing to say against that. I'm playing as a genius, so
Glenn, yeah, he's my favorite of the younger artists.
Mhm.
Does he count? Is it 10 years?
He said 30 years, so well, the
Oh.
last 30 years. So
Yeah, that's probably. I'd have to get back to you if I were to do a deeper search, but I think that's my first choice.
which comic book of yours are you most proud of?
Well, I have to say the one I'm working on now, Battling Boy. But in terms of a finished story, probably the Adam Strange story I did for Wednesday Comics. I think that really, it did everything I wanted. It did it right, and it was very short.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
going back to what you said, we said before about short stories and their
Yeah,
own.
it's a short story. It's a movie serial. That's
Yeah.
what I went for. So yeah.
Okay, Gonzalo Araya asks, hi Paul, had you ever thought about adapting a novel or a short story into a comic?
Yeah. In fact, it's funny. I just saw that someone is adapting Coetzee's book, Waiting for the Barbarians.
Hmm?
I really wanted to get the rights to that and adapt it because it's amazing. It's about colonialism, in fact, but it's an amazing story, and it could fit very well in science fiction. I have something I can't talk about, but there is another literary work that I think is going to be a project I'm working on. That it's going to be an adaptation
Mm-hmm.
in the near future.
But don't ask, as we said before, don't ask.
It will be short.
Okay, that's okay. You've had enough of the long ones.
Yeah.
Ian Morrison says, what current titles are you both reading and enjoying?
I don't really read contemporary comics. I'm looking at Gunsmith Cats. I visit Mobius. I visit Jack Kirby a lot. I think that's the funny part is like when it becomes a job, it's like you're doing it. I look at Frank Miller's work. I think that's kind of it, really. I love this Brazilian artist, Bruno Selig, if you've heard of him. I think he's great. And actually, that might be the answer to the question, my favorite artist. I don't know how old Bruno is. He might be 30, 32, 33.
Mm-hmm.
But he's younger, and I think he's great.
Yeah, but that I think that's also, in a way, because lockdown or not, but especially in a lockdown, we need to go back to our safer spaces, right? To go back and read what you love, but is going to take you to a again into a safe bubble where you can survive, right?
Yeah, because we need strength right now. So yeah, I have been reading older works. I think
things is happening to me with reading comics. Is happening to me with movies. People ask me about the new shows in Netflix, etc. Like I am almost not watching new shows. I go back to the old ones or to the old movies that I have.
Yeah.
For my safe space, if I have to watch 7 Hitchcocks in 7 days, I will watch 7 Hitchcock. I don't care. Especially John Ford. I'm going to back to John Ford. I'm going to go back to the safe space that I know I'm going to love and know is going to clean my head.
Yeah, I kind of think the same thing. I think, it's funny. Like I really miss going to comic book shops. I haven't done it for a long time. I buy most of my books online.
Yeah.
Also, I look at a lot of like art books and things, and like I'll get inspirations from those.
Yeah, but in the village right now, stores you have one of the Midtown Comics is closed, right? The downtown one.
I haven't been to a comic book shop for so long. I mean, there's a really great bookstore near me called Mercer Books that had old jazz records and old paperbacks, and I got all my John Carter Mars and Doc Savage books and great art books from there.
Next time I'm in New York, you're so taking me to that place. I
would love to, but it closed down.
Shit.
Yeah, so don't worry, there's other ones. There's a great place called Left Bank Books that is here, run by that place for sure. But yeah, I would love that. Yeah,
I try to do this in my hometown in Barcelona also, but also in Paris. Every time I go to Paris, by the Seine, I try to go to all the bookstores. I try to find. I found there. I remember a first edition Origins of Marvel Comics, like in a Seine store.
Yeah.
And I found it. I was like, "What is it doing? What is it? This is worth a lot of money. Whatever. Like €4. Give it to me. So I took it home and I showed her. Like, how do you find that?
I have a copy.
I don't know. That's the thing about going to all stores. You know, the stuff you find. That's the funniest part.
That was my first comic book was Bring on the Bad Guys, which was the one that came out before Origins of Marvel Comics. So that was the one with Nick Fury and Iron Man and Daredevil.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other one was the bad guys, right? So it was Doctor Doom, Otomo.
Yeah. I don't have that one. Okay.
I loved it.
Yeah. Noah Van Exciver says Buzz Sawyer is excellent. He was seen before. Helper, hi everybody. Sorry for the delay. What delay? It's me who's late with your questions, guys. Don't worry about that. Thanks for joining. Thanks to the master of storytelling, Mr. Pope, for joining us. And thanks for bringing him to us, David. Thanks to him.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Ian Morrison, how can you achieve utopia if you don't visualize it? I think we get object fixation with dystopia, and that's why we head towards it.
Wait. I'm sorry. What did he say?
He's talking about what we were discussing before about dystopia and utopia.
Yeah.
He's saying, how can you achieve utopia if you don't visualize it? I mean, I think we get object fixation with dystopia, and that's why we keep heading towards it.
Without what? I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying.
Again, he says, how can you achieve utopia if you don't visualize it? I think we have...
Don't be what, though?
So visualize it, if we don't see it.
Oh.
I think we did object fixation with dystopia, and that's why we keep heading towards it.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. It's like, if you look at today's world, you know, despite anybody's opinion about Elon Musk, he's building spaceships to go to Mars. And then we also have people rioting for, you know, rights and make sure that they're not being abused by police officers in the streets. Human action is everything we do. I sit in my room and I make comic books, right? And I pay taxes. And then the next guy is building spaceships. This guy is a photographer. This guy is, you know, working at the docks. So it's different for everyone. I don't think that as a civilization or as a people, we all have to have the same goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Absolutely. As you said, there's a guy, you know, cutting the grass, and the next one can be colliding atoms at CERN.
Yeah.
And the Large Hadron Collider.
I mean, if I wasn't an optimist, I wouldn't be alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Suicide's easy, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, having belief and faith in something is the way that we go forward. And then, you know, in your case, I don't have children. I want to someday. But, you know, like you have the next generation.
Yeah.
So then the transformation happens when you become a mother or a father, you know, then now we're taking care of the new people.
Now it's safeguarding their future. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's got to be. Felipe Bell says, apparently Arthur C. Clarke got on like a house on fire with William Burroughs when they met.
Why not? They're both intellectuals. They're both probably bohemians. They're both cool.
Yeah, well, you know, Arthur C. Clarke lived for 30 years in Sri Lanka. You know, like
he worked with Kubrick. They made one of the greatest science fiction films of all time. I mean, yeah, why not? He's probably
and apparently they got along really, really well.
Yeah, they lived in the Chelsea Hotel.
Yeah,
23rd Street, right? I mean, I have no problem with Arthur Clarke. I just don't like his literature. He's a great guy.
I think it was at the same time Clarke was Kubrick. Leonard Cohen was also there.
Oh, nice one. Oh, really?
Same time, and Leonard Cohen talked about it. I don't remember who was the fourth one, but it was another musician or poet who was at the same time in the hotel. I will find the story and send it to you. Okay, Angel Perez, Mr. Pope. How was the origin of your collaborations with our master David Reuben on in Aurora West?
Yeah, I've known David for a long time, and I wanted to work with him. And when the chance came to expand Battling Boy, I wanted to work with him. So, you know, I think there's so many great talents in Spain. Now there's so many more and more famous artists in Spain who are becoming known. Like Maria Lovett is a good example. I'm working with her on Faithless. So the chance came, and I thought David would do a great job with his book. So I was really happy with the collaboration.
Ramsey Hassan, as a new creator, there's pressure to turn yourself into a brand to help build readers and Kickstarter, but I prefer to focus on making dope art. But Dali was a brand. So is this part of being an artist?
Yeah, for sure. I think you need to find your voice, and don't worry too much about what the critics say or the press. Really, if anything, I think you go to. I mean, right now we can't, but you find a way to have a communication with peers.
Yes.
You go to comic conventions when you can, or you go to cafes and hang out with other people who make art. You go to bookstores. You get exposed to cool things, new things. You find your voice. That's what we need. And then do your best work, and don't work on these long books. Do something short, like we were saying.
Yeah.
8 pages. I like this. The 8-page. I'm going to call it the David Macho Challenge.
Show it, you can finish it.
Show you can finish it. Yeah. Wait, I have to plug my computer, and it's dying over here. Hang on.
Yep.
This is my studio, by the way.
Nice.
There it is. Did a change of scenery here. My computer was dying.
It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Just connect it. You're done now? Okay, let's see. Hi, Paul. Log from Howard says, hi, Paul. It's obvious that you're an author who creates trends in art. What do you think about seeing some artists sometimes copying your style? Do you mind? You don't? What do you think?
Two thoughts about this. I think there comes to be a part where, as a contributor to comics, you create a voice or a style, and it becomes part of comics. Like, who invented the little invention of like when a guy runs and there's a little cloud behind him, or sweat beads coming off of someone's forehead, or speed lines. So if I contributed to the voice of comics, I think that's fine. People can use anything you want, I know when I was younger, I swiped from Dave McKean and from Chester Brown and from Jaime Hernandez and different people. I think it's fine because you're learning your voice, you're getting through it. I don't get angry at anybody who's like, oh, you look like a clone of me. Like, I don't feel like that, because every artist, look at Jack Kirby, he has, including myself, 1,000, 10,000 people who learned from him.
Yeah. So
if it's a contribution, I think that's great. And then I think the only thing is the responsibility is, in return, you make a contribution to the language.
Exactly. Yeah. I always think that answering you, let me see the name of the guy. So Log from, I always think that there's a phase where you copy other artists, and that's part of learning. And I always tell the young kids, it's fine that you copy there, but now look out the window, check that tree, look at people, draw from real life, find your voice, because the only way to find your voice is through real life, not copying. Copying is going to give you tools, but to abstract reality, you need to understand it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's also the advantage I had is I went to art school and I studied painting and anatomy and these other things before I even knew I wanted to go into comics. I thought I was going to be a professor, right? But then it's like, okay, I love comics, I'm going to go for comics. And I think you're right. You need to really study some basics about, humanities, whatever it might be.
Exactly. Philippe Brel says, Richard Dawkins' book, The Magic of Reality, illustrated by Dave McKean, is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong. Also, McKean's book with John Cale, What's Welsh for Zen? That this one about the history of, it's about John Cale, but it's about the Velvet Underground.
Yes.
That's one of the most beautifully designed books I've ever seen.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I love McKean.
I was rereading Tales of Black Dog last week. And
Oh yeah. He's great.
I just love it. Blake Roybal says, "What's the name of your girlfriend's shampoo?"
My girlfriend's what?
Shampoo.
Oh, I'd have to look in the bathroom. I forget the name of it. Why is he in Greece?
I guess so. I don't know. He's asking. That one took me by surprise. I gotta tell you.
I'd have to go look. I don't remember the name of it.
You'll find out sooner or later. Just look for great Greek shampoo. Okay.
Actually, yeah, okay, that's the product endorsement we need.
Yes, another
Greek shampoo.
Greek shampoo all the way down the bottom of the page.
Brought to you by
Sponsored by a great Greek shampoo we don't know the name of. Anyway, Ian Morrison says Paul needs to listen to Charlie XCX.
What is it? I'll write it down. Who is it?
Charlie, CHARLI, Charlie XCX.
CX?
XCX.
XC. Okay, is this Charlie XCX saying this?
No, it's Ian Morrison. I don't know if Ian Morrison is the alter ego of Charlie XCX.
Okay.
Well, maybe.
Okay, I'll listen. Thank you. I'll listen.
Okay. Dalton says, "Great to hear you, Paul. We all miss you here in Brazil."
I'll be back soon. Love you all.
And we all miss him too in Spain too. So
Yeah,
it's not only Brazilians, just so you know.
Well, I almost moved to Sao Paulo, actually. I was living with Rafael Grandpa and just checking it out. But, now I'm in New York. But, David and I were talking about I'm hopefully coming back to Stockholm in March. Mm-hmm. And if I do, I want to extend the trip, and I'll come to Spain. And I have to go to France anyway. I have a project with Dargo. So I need to go to Paris for that. So, yeah, I'm sure everybody's on the same page. Like, we can't wait to be able to see other
to just go out and jump and whatever.
Yeah.
As I said, some people have told me, checking and others, like, it's not that I miss conventions. It's that I mean seeing my peers and sitting down and having a drink, going to dinner, finding the
beauty. Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's great to meet people, but like you get, even though cons are so exhausting, you get so much from them,
Yeah, absolutely.
Energy.
So, Magenta King. Hi, Paul. What do you think?
Magenta, this is a friend of mine.
Okay. I don't know. Hello, Magenta. Nice to meet you. Sorry. Hi, Paul.
He's a great talent, too. He's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really good.
I will find you. As Daniel Day-Lewis, who I mentioned before, said that on Last of the Mohicans, I will find you. Anyway, Magenta King says, "Hi, Paul. What do you think your time in Japan inspired most in your work? Greetings from Brazil."
You know what? I'd say work ethic. They approach comics like a corporation, and it's very difficult to be an artist in a corporation where you're up against all of the structure, and it was. I should write more about the time in Japan. It was very strange, but I like how competitive the Japanese manga market is. They picked their favorite artists, and they, like with me, and there was another guy that they put me against. Minetaro Mochizuki, if you know him, he did Dragonhead.
Yeah.
So we were kind of considered similar artists, and they always put us at, like, it was like the praying mantis versus the turtle, like they wanted to do this. And it was kind of unfair, but in a way it made you stronger because you had to look at the artists and, like, how did they work, and I like that. And also I got a real respect for the kind of quiet lifestyle of being a cartoonist, because you spend a lot of time alone in a room.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen to all the rock and roll, you can do all this kind of thing, but it's like, really, to get the job done, you work long hours alone.
Do you know a creator, an artist called named Guy Delisle?
No.
He writes stories about his times, in Pyongyang, in Korea, and all the places he has to move to because of being an animator.
Okay.
It's amazing comics. When you were saying about that Japan, that reminded me of what he does, and I would love you. I would love to see you doing that.
Yeah, I want to.
A comic recollecting your time in Japan and what you learn and the experience of being there.
I think when I talked to my editor on Battling Boy about this, like when Battling Boy is done, we're going to do sort of an art of Battling Boy. This story has been so strange, like working on movies and like all these different things that fell apart. But there's been a lot of knowledge that I've acquired that it doesn't like it's not everything that you learn goes into a book. It's like it's your life too, right? So I do want to write about this because there's a lot of disciplines in Japan that I think are amazing that are kind of silent. They're kind of invisible.
Yeah.
So I do want to write about some of that. Yeah.
Okay, I hope you do it. Magenta King says, hi, second that does. We miss you here, Paul, in Brazil. David De Josso asks, how were you introduced to Guido Crepax's work?
Heavy metal. He was one of the artists in heavy. It's funny. Two of my favorite artists, Jack Kirby and Guido Crepax, I read them as a child, but I hated their work. I thought it was grotesque and ugly and amateur. But now it's like I think that's the best, So yeah, he was published. Valentina was published in Heavy Metal magazine, so I was able to get that at the gas station because they had the magazines, right? So it's like you get Sports Illustrated and Heavy Metal.
That's nice.
So yeah, so my mom didn't care if I looked at magazines with naked women. She was fine. So read Crepax. Then I discovered him again as an adult, and I was like, I love this guy's work. It's genius, really. It's great.
Ian Morrison clarifies Charlie XCX is good pop from the UK.
Okay, thank you. I will listen.
Good to know it's not you.
Okay, good.
Blake Rival asks, Paul, what's your favorite movie?
The Life of Andrei Rublev by Tarkovsky, 1969. Soviet era cinema. It's an epic film. I would put. This might sound kind of cliche, but I would maybe put Dolce Vita on there. I love Fellini.
Mm-hmm.
Jodorowsky, Holy Mountain. And then early Disney, I might say.
Okay, perfect. Victor Puchalski, who's another creator here from Spain, says, we should do more spoken. I don't know what spoken is. I'm sorry, Victor. And Reuben.
Like spoken, spontaneous, spoken?
Spoke on, he says. Spoke on.
Okay.
I guess it's that. I don't know if he misspelled or not. Yes, we should. That's what we were saying before. We need more genres in comics.
Like this is great. We're just talking. David and I have known each other since 2005, maybe.
Yeah, or even earlier. Yeah,
we came to that show in Barcelona, right? So then we've stayed in touch.
Yep.
And this is great too because this is one of the first conversations I've had with a peer in comics. Like my girlfriend's not into comics. We don't talk about comic books at all. She likes Blutch. She likes me. She likes Frank Miller. But and animation she likes. But we don't talk about, she's a medical person. She doesn't talk about comic books. This is the first time that I've been able to talk to anyone about comics in depth.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's good.
I'm glad. Let me see. Simon Yamamoto. Are you managing to work during the pandemic? Any tips on how not to ruin your hand from drawing too much?
Well, from a pharmaceutical point, I would say you can take turmeric or fish oil because there is I have carpal tunnel, so I have to be careful. Sometimes I can't draw. It's terrible. Yeah. It happens. So you can do that. There's exercises you can do to protect your wrist. But mainly, I think we have to worry about our mental health. So you need to have friends, and you need to call your loved ones. If you have a pet, take care of the pet. Take walks. These other we're not just machines. We're not gonna just do this. So I think if you can get outside in the sun or take some time, or kiss somebody, like these human things. I think that's what keeps us human.
Yeah, half an hour before I started with you, I was going back with my dog from the forest. We have like a minute away from home. My
Yeah,
two daily walks, and then of course my daughter is there, so I will see. The dog was here where we're starting. I don't know if you saw her, but the moment that my kid came into the door, he just walked to her. So they are not together. So then I have, those times, that time that makes you human, is that what gives me strength to continue. Is, as you said, take care of your brain. But if your screen just said your microphone is noisy, ignore it.
Okay. Yeah, it was.
Ignore it. It just says that when you just touch the table or something like that. Just ignore it. So yes, what makes us human is what makes you be able to create, right?
I think this is why I want to write about. Like there aren't really good. Like, I mean, people can go to school for cartooning now, I guess, but like the life of cartooning, the Tao of cartooning, like we don't have that book. Like
No, that's true.
If Jack Kirby wrote a book about just his life and like how he lived and what gave him energy and like what made him sad and what made him happy, like those things, I think that's what we need, because I think people need, especially now, more and more people are using digital tools. I feel like I'm like fucking Gandalf. I'm like still over here drawing on paper, and but maybe I'm like one, because I did know Alex Toth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm friends with Frank Miller. It's like I know these older masters, and like learning from them has been great, right? So I think there has to be a place to make that public.
Yes, absolutely. Lucas Mauricio says, Paul, have you considered doing a samurai feudal Japan story? I loved the Lone Wolf box art from the Criterion collection.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I have, and I'm thinking about that. It's going to take a lot of research, but yes.
It's going to take you a long time of work before you can even start drawing.
I have, speaking of plugs, I have, my art rep is Felix Liu,
mm-hmm.
and he has a group of artists, great artists, and I do a lot of commissions for Lone Wolf and Cub now. So I'm very honored to be part of the Lone Wolf and Cub line. I'm doing a big piece, like a really large illustration right now for Lone Wolf and Cub for someone, and it's all set in Kabuki. Mm-hmm. So it's a traditional Kabuki, and it's so fascinating to learn about the theater and the staging and the costumes and everything. And so, because I want it to be very accurate. So the story is what, 1650, I think, is Lone Wolf, the Edo period somewhere.
Yeah. And
so I'm doing all the research for that. It's been, because everything has to be correct. The samurai sword, the costume, the kimono, the backdrop, everything has to be correct.
You have to show me that one when you finish it.
I will.
I really want to see it. Have you watched The Mandalorian?
Yes, I did. I watched it.
It's Lone Wolf and Cub.
It's nice because we finally get to see the Boba Fett movie that everybody wanted.
Yeah, with a better character than Boba Fett. You mean, right?
Yeah. There were moments in it that were, I think, great. Because it hit the perfect combination of Western, samurai film.
There was the Kurosawa part. There was, the mix that Lucas tried at the beginning.
Yeah,
it was there.
I thought the most interesting character is the IG, the droid.
Yeah,
he was intriguing. I liked him a lot. So
that's That's I forgot the name of the Thor director.
I can't think of his name either offhand. I know who you mean though.
The guy from What We Do in the Shadows too. I have the name on the tip of my tongue.
He did the voice?
He did the bod and the mocap.
Oh, nice one.
And the last episode, he directed it too.
Oh yeah, he's great.
That conversation between the two stormtroopers?
Yeah.
That is so fun.
I can see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's him writing that. He wrote that because imagine that the Thor Love and Thunder, I don't know if you...
Sure.
Or Ragnarok. It is that kind of writing, that absurd. I remember, I didn't know he had directed that episode because it's in the end of the episode, the credits, and I saw that conversation between both of them, and like, he did that. And then, the android comes, which is him. IG, he was IG.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
guys, Taika Waititi. Thank you, Ian. Taika Waititi. I had forgotten.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I feel Chuck Arnold says, I feel like it's the economics that is still having been dealt with in modern comics creation. How can comics continue to survive without people using Patreons or Kickstarter, or or getting their rights bought by Hollywood?
Well, I mean, we all have to make a living somehow. It seems to me that the New York Times just wrote about Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, they wrote about Keanu Reeves making way above his goal. I know lots of artists who are they're not world famous. Like Ron Wimberly, his magazine Lob. If you've seen this, this manages to get funded every time. I did a piece in the latest one that's coming. Again, it has to be network. I think, when I started comics, I was working in a print shop. I had jobs. I was a landscaper. I cleaned swimming pools. Anything. And then then that's your job.
Yeah.
Cool. You're done. Then you still have 6 or 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Instead of binge watching television, you can make comics.
Yeah.
And as you say, you produce it.
Yep.
And then that's I mean, yeah, I think this year is a challenge because we're not able to have the connection that we have in comics with conventions.
Yeah.
You can meet editors, you can meet other cartoonists. But now is the time to really go into your underground and work on something great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something small, something great.
That's always the same answer to these guys, which is keep working. Every time you are having a day, every minute you have, draw. If you're a writer, every time you have, write. Don't stop.
Yeah.
Write this. Don't binge watch. Don't look for an excuse. Don't say, "Oh, I'm tired." No, if you want to get there, you have to work it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but that's what it is. Even if you think you're tired, you have to do it. If not, we do comics because we love them. Not because we're going to get rich. I'm sorry,
Right.
but it's just what it is.
Right. Yeah. I knew I wanted to get into this because it's something I would do if I made no money. There's been plenty of times I've had no money. Like sometimes I have money, sometimes I don't. I still love the art form.
It's for as that's what I said. We do comics because we love it. It's for the love of it.
Exactly.
And that's also a bad part because they know, the other side know we love them. So they use that against us. Yes, they do. And we don't have unions and we don't have many other things. Yes, I know that. But almost nobody does comics because they want to get rich. We do comics because we love them. That's it. Right?
Also, the guys, the people who try to make comics to get rich, it's pretty obvious when you see them who they are.
Oh yeah.
They have no soul. It's obvious.
No, also you read the comics and it's absolutely reads like it doesn't read like a comic. It reads like a bad script or a bad a pitch.
Yeah, it's a movie.
Producer.
It's terrible. Yeah.
And it's really obvious. That's true. Blake Rival, Paul, what's your favorite movie? You already answered that. Felipe Reyes says Japanese Notebooks by Igor about his time in Japan and working in the manga industry is another great book.
Yeah, Igor's great.
That's what I'm gonna say. Everything that Igor does.
He's a really interesting guy. I like him a lot.
Interesting is a good way to define him. Yes, I will stay to that. Tito James, it's a good one. What does beauty mean to you? And you think, is it essential to art?
I like something that I read in a book about Greek art by H.K. Quito. The definition of beauty is capacity for action. And I like that. I think it's really good. I think a thing that is complete in itself is beautiful. That's why we love flowers or sunlight. It doesn't need extra things, So that's maybe an abstract answer, but that's what I think.
No, it's not. It's
a perfect line is like, that's what makes great cartooning. It's a perfect line.
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect because I always remind people, we go back to the science and arts part, that physicists and mathematicians are always thinking about the beauty of the equations. They gotta
Mathematics is beautiful.
gotta look beautiful. They always said if an equation, always with exceptions, there's always that people who was not in that school of thought, but 99% of physicists, biologists, chemists, mathematicians, especially physicists and mathematicians, they always tell you the same. Equations have to be beautiful. If they're beautiful, they're probably right.
Yeah, elegant is a term that
Elegant, exactly, elegant. Sorry.
equation. I love that, elegance. Yeah, there's something that we admire about that. That's why I like the definition of capacity for acting. I think it's a good definition.
But also in many cases, it's not the word beauty. Maybe it's not the correct one. It's elegant.
Elegant.
Also in comics, in painting, in math, in science, we look for something that is elegant, that looks elegant to you. It's not that doesn't necessarily mean that it's beautiful.
Actually, that's what
that is, right? Go, please.
Yeah, that's what you were getting at earlier about like the people protesting for more culture. They want elegance because I think it's possible in society that we just are brutes.
Yes.
Or we're just machines. We just work. We need elegance.
Yeah, we are losing the nuances that makes us elegant.
Yeah,
we are going
we can't lose it.
Yeah, so to the point of it, what we need, that sometimes we lose the detail. You know,
that's a really good meditation.
I keep talking about many times about I read a comic, and I read a book, not a book, of course, but watch a movie. And many times I think, where's the silence?
Mm-hmm.
And where's the silence? People tell me, what do you mean? It's like, where's my moment to meditate? Where's my moment to absorb? Where's my moment to look at the nuance? That's why I love.
Live streaming.
I'm sorry, YouTube again. I was saying.
Are we on? We're on.
We're on again. Yes.
Okay.
We're saying about what I was saying is many times what I love Lynch or Peter Greenaway. Like they give me the time to reflect. They give me the time to look at the nuance. Yeah. I want to understand, but I also want to explain. And sometimes explaining is not just talking. Sometimes expression without a word tells you a lot more.
Well, it makes you think about the definition of moving pictures, right? Like, that's a term we never hear for film anymore. Is moving pictures.
Yeah.
If I think about Prospero's books, for example, Peter Greenaway, that's a beautiful film, but there's a lot of space inside of it. You know, and that's one thing I love about Kurosawa too.
Absolutely.
The space. Eisenstein has this. Tarkovsky, all my favorite directors are Russians. They're great, you know, but they have this quality that you say, and I think that's one thing I love about comics because there's room for the reader to stop and just meditate.
Yeah, let's just say John Ford. You know, the searchers.
John Ford, yeah,
the searchers. You know, the door.
Oh, it's amazing. I love him.
That is telling you think, explore, look. You know, look about think about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
In a Orwellian way, if you want to, but you know, he's telling you to think for yourself, and that happens a lot with movies, with comics, and all that. I always say, give us a moment. You know, I love Taniguchi because of that. Gino Taniguchi, The Walking Man, or Diary of My Father, because it's always about the reflection. It's about, no, I'm not going to give you this amount of information in 5 seconds. I'm going to let you absorb it bit by bit.
You know what? I love what you're saying because it's kind of an argument for why we need art comics. You know, like, frankly, even though, you know, I've worked in mainstream comics and stuff, and it's like I kind of don't care about continuity with Superman, but I just need a good story. Really, that's the reason we read literature, isn't it? Yeah. It's like I think comics are literature. They are part of literature.
Yeah.
So we want an expression of the artist. We want a story about life. We want something like that.
Yeah.
And I think great film does that also.
Absolutely, and also about the value of what I said before. I was just thinking about when I'm angry with my kid, with my daughter, I don't yell. I just look at her very firmly. That for her is a lot more. It's a lot serious. And really, if I yell, she can't yell back. You know that thing. But if it's just look, you're telling, I am really angry, and that's a lot more effective.
Yeah.
That's a lot more effective.
I
So
hope your daughter doesn't watch this.
6 years old, 6 years old.
On your
Maybe
psychology.
she's older. But what I mean is that in a way, that's also in the language of comics or any other language, the reflection, the time to absorb the information. I love this about. I love both Solaris, Tarkovsky's and Soderbergh, because when people says remake, it's not a remake. There are two versions of the same book.
Right.
Completely different ones. But I love the time he takes in the Soderbergh one to show you everything and let you, go through it and absorb it. He's not telling you all. It's like he lets you see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that we're missing that a lot in comics. As you said, in the art form, giving a space to the reader.
Yeah.
Not just manipulating him and taking him from here to there, but also telling him, I'm going to let you find the door.
Yeah. I like what you're saying. It's kind of a. I mean, for as many cartoonists as are in the world, let's say there's 10,000 cartoonists, 20,000 cartoonists. There's 20,000 ways to make different types of
Absolutely.
comics, right?
Absolutely.
But this type of comics you're describing, I like a lot. One of my favorite cartoonists is Daniel Torres.
Yes.
With the Rocco Vargas, right? And there are places in Rocco Vargas where, particularly, because I know he's done Tom and done other books, but that's one I love a lot. And there's places in there where you can just get lost in the pictures, and you it's like, as you say, you're invited to just live there and think.
Yeah, to explore, to live, and to get it more inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
If it gets more inside of you, you stay with that forever. The book stays with you, and that's something that many times, again, this is comics. It's sequential art. It's based on image. Whether some writers think that or not, so the image is the one that is going to catch you forever. It's not the text.
Well, I think that's the way comics is like film, because as the author, the auteur, you are the director. You're also the editor.
Yep.
You're the cinematographer. You're the actor. Like all these different things that you have to put together to make a picture complete.
Yeah, you're the DP, you're the writer, absolutely.
Yeah. So there is a place that it's similar, even though I think, especially in modern film, like after Spielberg and the blockbusters, American cinema changed the art form completely. So it's a different thing now.
Yeah, it's like the ones that misunderstood Spielberg, like Michael Bay and all the others. Says action. It's the same that the people who misunderstood Frank and Alan. It's like, oh, it's gotta be dark. It's gotta be guns. It's gotta be killing people. Like, no, that wasn't the fucking point.
Right.
So with Spielberg, the same thing. Or with Lucas, that wasn't the fucking point. Making a blockbuster that doesn't let you even think for 5 seconds, because this explosion after explosion, action scene after action scene, like, stop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even to bring back to what we were saying at the beginning, talking about the films that you talked about, Lighthouse. I was talking about You Were Never Really There, by the film with Joaquin Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Great film. It's like, I think we're lucky if we get one great movie a year. And it's probably true also for comics. There's lots of good ones.
Yeah.
But there's one great one, and you can define it however you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me see. Gonzalo Arayas, Paul, would you work with Alejandro Jodorowsky?
How do I answer this question? No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I was advised not to work with him.
I want to enter here.
He's difficult to work with.
No, it's not only that. It's about what he writes in his book about children, and I will stop here. Not in a live feed.
I would say this. I would like to meet him. I know that he still does tarot readings in Paris. I know people who know him. I know he knows who I am. But when I approach the question, because I love his books, The Bouncer, Incal, of course. I was advised from people who know him well not to work with him because it would be too difficult.
Okay, let's leave it there. Peter Puchalski clarifies, Spokon is a sports manga, the one I didn't know about before.
Popcorn?
Spokon. It's Spokon.
Don't know it.
No, he says that's what they call a sports manga.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, it's great. Well, once again, the Japanese got it right.
Yeah. Blake Rival. What's the process of your new comic book to becoming fully colored? I mean, you're coloring it?
No, I don't, because I get carpal tunnel. I don't use the computer unless I have to. I do it for scanning, but I art direct the books. So when I work on a book like Battling Boy, I have a color in mind for a scene, or maybe there's a key color. You know, like there's some special object on the table that has to be red, and so everything needs to amplify the red color.
Yeah,
I do that kind of thing. I only color my own work if it's like an illustration or screen print or something like that.
Okay. Ian Morrison asks, have you ever either read Little Bird? Such an incredible book.
What is it?
Little Bird.
Yes. Yeah. Ian's a friend of mine. Ian Bertram's a great artist.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it? He's amazing.
I know Ian, but I haven't read the book.
Yeah, he lives in Brooklyn, so we get together sometimes, and we have a really healthy. How do I say this? We're friends. His work challenges me, and my work challenges him. So we have a good kind of a hybrid thing where we try to push each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's a great talent.
Okay, Little Bird, noted. Is there something that, let's say it this way, I know you, I don't think you will ever retire, but let's think it this way.
No, I'm going to be like Toth. I'm going to die at the table.
But let's think it this way. What is the thing that you say that you keep telling yourself, I have to do this before I retire, but you never get to?
Because I feel like stories are like possessions. I'm like possessed by these things. It's like I have to get them out. I'm turning 50, right? And next week I'm turning 50. So I was lying in bed thinking that, that thing when you can't sleep, it's 4 a.m, you're just lying there, you're like awake. I was like, well, okay, let's imagine I got 20 more years. What can I do before I'm dead? Then you're going through your list of all the things, right? Hopefully more than 20.
Yeah.
But, then it's like, okay, well, I have enough story to keep going. I have to keep going.
But is there any specific stuff that you say, I've never been able to do it, but I'm not going to die before telling this story?
I want to do one autobiographical story. I wrote something about being a teenager that it isn't sentimental. It's very honest, and it has some interesting, different things in it that I think would make a really good story, and I think it would speak to young people today.
And where do you think we need to go as comics to continue being valuable to people or to get to more people?
I think we won, man. Marvel Comics won. We won. Everybody, when I first moved to New York in 1996, I started working at Vertigo. I was still working at Kodansha. So everyone asks, like, what do you do for a living? And I didn't want to tell the truth. I didn't want to say, oh, I'm a cartoonist. I make comic books. Because people would always say, oh, do you make a living at that? Or like they'd laugh or something. It would be kind of like, ooh. But then I noticed once Dark Knight came out and the Avengers films, everybody started changing their opinion. Like, oh, that's so cool, you make comic books. So I think the challenge isn't whether or not you can live as a cartoonist or if cartooning is like socially acceptable. It's more like, how do we keep like real blood in comics so that you're an artist making comics, not just a person working for a corporate machine making comics.
That is, in a way, we were talking about voices, finding your own voice.
Yeah.
Even if it's inside the machine, but sometimes you gotta be able to get out of the machine to have your complete voice, right? Because you have the voice, but your voice is inside a box, to say in a way. There's gotta be something when you break the box
you can also,
to create your.
Yeah, I like what Clint Eastwood said. He said, when he is a director or making films, he says, I make one for me, one for them. right? And I think you can work inside the machine. Look at Batman Year 100. It's an example.
Yeah,
it did everything you want in a Batman book, but it did it in a different way. And the times I've tried to work on Fantastic Four or Captain America or things, it's always been my way, but it's been exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is a way to do it. So there's hope for that. But I think, it's really important that we have like a wide scope. So we look at manga and comics and bande dessinée and whatever from different places. We look at paintings. We look at theater. We listen to music. As cultural people, we need to express these things.
Yeah. Do you think that takes me to? Do you think that comics is the most difficult art to work on? Because of how many things you have to learn to do it well.
Honestly, I think dance is probably the most difficult because it damages your body. I think in comics, like if you look at Will Eisner, even though he's maybe an exception, I mean, there's many cartoonists who can work until they're 80 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe 90. Hirschfeld worked till he was 90.
Totally.
If you're a dancer or you're an athlete, I think your career is short.
Oh yeah, I remember being on a plane with a very famous soccer player, and you look at his legs. He had retired a couple of years ago, and the legs are bent.
Yeah.
Because and they fight injuries the rest of their life because of being on the soccer field for 90 minutes per week, training every day.
I mean, the worst thing we have is carpal tunnel, or maybe your eyes go a little bit bad.
Yeah, or your back. Yeah,
or your back hurts or something.
Yeah, that's so true. Going back to the level that we said before, reality versus our bubble is a good one.
Right.
Clay Stroff says, "Thanks for life-size Monster Ghost. It totally encapsulates growing up in the Midwest."
Great, thank you.
And we've been at this for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I think it's time to let you go back to your life and to have lunch because it's 1:23.
Yeah.
So yes, it's time for you.
This is the first time I've really talked to anybody about comics or had any sense of community for a long time. Probably since Madrid, actually. I don't know if we made this clear, but David and I were together in Madrid in December. And we did the show there, and then we had lots of time together. We had dinners, and one of my favorite people, Jose Villarrubia, is there. And he was there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of my Spanish friends, and it was great to just be there. So this is the first time since then I feel like been a chance to talk about these things we love.
I hope you enjoyed it. That's the important thing.
Loved it.
Okay, so please don't cut because I want to say proper goodbye to you after I cut the live feed.
Okay, fair.
To all of you, thank you so much for being here. Enjoy your weekend. Wear your fucking mask. Save lives. To you, Paul, again, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
And back again on Monday.
Magenta King and Bruno Selig.
Yes. And Little Bird for me, that I won't forget.
Little Bird. Ian Bertram.
And on Monday, we'll be back at the same time with the writer, Mr. Joshua Dysart. Okay? So, out with you. Have a good weekend. Have fun.